Right. I haven't seen any questions coming in yet in the chat, other than maybe we're having tech issues. So hopefully we pick back up here. Looks like we're back up and going. But yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat, so we'll go ahead and move on to something a little bit more local with Jose Marquez. So Jose, whenever you are ready.
Let me make sure I unmute myself first. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jose Marquez. I am one of the STEM coordinators for Stanislaus County Office of Education. I also dabble in history and social science, and then now virtual tours. If you want to go ahead and jump into the next slide. Yeah, so represent the instructional support services, one of your local county office of ed. And our goal for the most part is to provide professional development in standards-based instruction, but obviously with what happened at the beginning of spring last year. Go ahead and move to the next slide, please, Alexandra. Go ahead and click. I'm going to have you click a little bit. So just the first one more time. Perfect. So we went into distance learning, and I think a few of us, we're kind of scrambling at the very beginning. But once we realized at the beginning of this school year that we were going to continue distance learning, we started to make some phone calls. As a matter of fact, go ahead and click. Our outdoor ed director, Jessica Hewitt, called me and said, "Hey, Jose, what are we going to do about distance learning? How do we reach these classrooms?" And we know there's some great resources out there. Ports is one of them in terms of doing virtual tours. We were thinking, how can we do some local ones? And so she made some connections that you continue. You go ahead and click 3 or 4 more times. Thank you. So we established connection with Tuolumne River Trust, which is a local river steward organization here. The Global Education Project, which is based out of Stanislaus State. We have the National Ag Science Center. They have what's called the Ag in Motion, so a huge, trailer that they take around to different junior highs. Valley Improvement Project, which is focused on environmental and social justice. And there should be one more, which is the Great Valley Museum. When we met and we talked about how can we reach our teachers and students knowing they can't come to us, especially those used to host. So we thought about doing some virtual tours and activities. Go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. And one of the things that came out is actually these webpage or website from SCOE, which is Virtual Tour Field Trips. And we know there's virtual tours out there through many resources. We want to make it a little bit different and be able to have some additional activities that are tied to those virtual field trips. So if a teacher wants to do anything in particular, we only have like 4 areas right now, several videos in each one. But let's say, for example, you had a lesson or a topic that you were covering birds or migratory birds, right? And so if you go ahead and go into the next slide, we're actually go back a little bit. One more, there you go. Go ahead and click on that link, Alexandra. So we're going to go into the website. That link work? I'm sure it's popping up in a different tab. Is that possible? I'll go ahead and talk through it anyways. So if you click on that link, the Stanislaus County Virtual Field Trips webpage, it'll give you options. It'll give you 4 different topics you can choose from. And you can click on one of those. It essentially looks like a badge, but it's a link to one of those topics. And then it'll give an option to do a virtual field trip there. On that same page, you'll actually have the activities on a choice board, which is a hyper document. Alexandra, I noticed that I'm just looking at a screen of, imagine the others are doing the same thing, of all the participants. Can we change the screen? Is it easier if I just share? I'm not hearing any responses.
Hello, hi, Jose.
Yes.
This is Matthew Ketchum. I just got a text message. Alexandra's working on her computer. It looks like there was a technical difficulty. I'm gonna load up the PowerPoint and bring it.
You know what?
back
If it's easy, Matthew, if it's easier, I can just share my screen.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, is that
please do.
easier? Okay, I
Yes.
apologize, everyone. Sorry about that.
No, thanks
right, so
for rolling with it.
Oh, no worries, no worries. It happens. It's just part of this is part of our job. So adaptability is what we do in science, actually. So let me see if I can share my screen and go to the correct page. So I'm going to go into it. Somebody just chime in really quick. Can you all see my screen here, which it says virtual field trips?
Yes, it looks good.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. So now I can go ahead and use a visual cue here as I explain it. So this is our webpage, and you can see you have 4 options. And the idea was really to bring in some local resources into classrooms. So we have the fruit barn. If you're familiar with that, it's you know, the Resendez farm over there off of Turlock and Houston. So the corner of Santa Fe, and if you're familiar with Gear Road, it's a pretty large size fruit barn. But what the owner wanted to do, he wanted to actually bring students to their experience. And they've always gone out there and taken students out for the corn maze, a pumpkin patch, and they'd have educational activities. So he approached us and said, look, I want to do this. We kind of carried that torch, and we did the same thing with Faith Ranch, Modesto Junk Company, and then also Turlock Wastewater Treatment Plant. And the idea is so students have some sort of exposure to local places they've gone in the past. Maybe I can't do it now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these here. Let's say, for example, Faith Ranch, which is actually a restored wetlands area. It's privately owned, but we're trying to create public access. We've done it in the past, but obviously with COVID, things changed a little bit. So I'm going to click on this so you can see, here's an example. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video there, but you get an idea. You're taking students through a tour of Faith Ranch, which is over in Salida, over there by Stanislaus River. So they've restored some of these wetlands for the Aleutian cackling geese, but there's all kinds of waterfowl that show up and even other animals as well. So it's just a great experience for students. But what we've done in addition to the virtual tours is actually add a choice board. So that choice board is down below. And we have an activity from every content area, and it's pretty easy. It's just a Google slide deck. So all you got to do is just click forward. And I'm going to go to the very first one here. Let's see. There we go. Actually, I'll go back one. Let's do history, which is actually, I think, a geography lesson. There we go. And it starts off with an inquiry question. Why do geese migrate? And it gives you a little bit of background for the educator, but the educator can just click on the link here. It's going to take them to the actual lesson, which is a slide deck itself, and it'll walk them through the entire thing. It'll walk them through a notice and wonder, you know, have them watch the actual video tour first, and then what do they notice? What are they thinking about based on that experience? So we're actually doing some protocols as well that we might want to use in the classroom. I heard Scott reference them earlier as well. in terms of driving questions and try to answer them by the end of the activity. So we do the same thing for these other ones. We have additional videos that you can access to get better understanding. But really the goal is to address and answer this question here. Why do geese migrate? We're assuming that this lesson is really geared towards upper elementary, possibly even middle school, but it can be adapted to early elementary and even secondary. So those are the way you can access, and like I said, you can do the same thing for other content areas. All you do is just go ahead and continue to click forward on this slide deck. You see it kind of jumps every time, but that's ELA activity. The same thing for science and STEM. It's actually, instead of being a bird beak, it's actually bird claws, which is pretty cool. And then we do the same for math activity, and the last one is going to be an art one. And we have that for every single one of the virtual tours. So not only is it a tour, but it's also a learning experience that's already packaged for the teachers. And that's it of my presentation. I'm going to pass on the baton. I think we're doing Q&A at the very end of all the presentations.
Hi, Jose. Hopefully you guys can hear me now.
I can't hear you. Thank you.
Perfect. Yes, we'll be doing Q&A at the end. So I'll go ahead and take back over. I apologize. My Teams decided it did not want to work anymore, so I had to do a quick restart. But now I am back, and hopefully we don't have any more issues. All right. So thank you again for that presentation, Jose. That was fabulous. Hopefully, it looks like you have all kinds of content areas, so hopefully we'll have some teachers check those out and we'll kind of recap. I didn't see any questions come in during your presentation, but we will have time at the end to answer any questions that came in.